hello, 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 everyone. Everyone. Hello, how are you guys doing tonight? Ay, ay, ay. Happy Tuesday. Happy Tuesday. Welcome. So tonight's broadcast, for those of you that are watching the replay later, tonight's broadcast, we're going to talk about what are spiritual gifts in this time of awakening. And all these, spiritual this and spiritual that and ascension and all of this. The question I get asked a lot, probably that's one of the top 10, I would say top 5, is what are spiritual gifts? What's the point in having them? Can I have any access to them? Are they for me? That sort of thing. So if that's what you are interested in, this is the first video in what's probably going to be a 3 to 5 part series on spiritual gifts. My name is Lisa. This is Heart of Inspiration, and here at this channel, we help you to live life in spirit. And before we go any further, for those of you who are not already subscribed, please consider subscribing, as well as smashing that like button, please. And after this is all over, or while we're here, share it with your friends. Also, you're going to notice up in the top corner up here, both on Twitter and Instagram, you can find me at of Heart of INSP. All right, let's get into it. I've got feedback going on over here. Let's get into it. Now, the reason why this topic I feel like is so critical right now for us, as awakened ones, light workers, so on and so forth, is because I feel like this concept of spiritual gifts as we know them, you're either kind of in two camps, okay? If you're coming from the Christian camp, a lot of Christianity, the church, there's even division within the church as to whether or not spiritual gifts are real and whether or not they operate today in the current modern time. There's some factions that'll say, they'll term it the gifts of the Spirit. There are gifts of the Spirit that are listed, I believe it is in 1 Corinthians, if I'm not mistaken. There are gifts of the Spirit that are listed there as a result of the indwelling of the Holy Spirit. And some people will say that they don't exist anymore, even in Christianity. And then you have the charismatic Christians, or, that are like, yeah, of course, all of them exist. And then you have some people that'll say, well, you might be able to operate in it, but that there is witchcraft. That there is evil. So there, so there's this wide gamut of thought processes on spiritual gifts. Who can have them? What the heck are they? And hopefully this video is going to demystify that for you. Now, let's kind of go based on what are spiritual gifts. Spiritual gifts, this is a thus saith Lisa, this is my own definition. Spiritual gifts are abilities that one has that are outside of what you could do with your natural body or your natural mind. Okay? So things like intuition is a spiritual gift to me. Your physical body, although you might get the tingles or goosebumps might come over you, or that fight or flight reaction to things, there's some of that happens just innately because we, the human race is actually a mammal, right, by scientific definition. So there is fight or flight there. And so some would say, well, that's just a natural third dimensional thing. But I don't think that, to me, if it was a natural thing, everybody would operate in it at the same capacity. And they don't. They don't operate in intuition. They don't operate in that sort of thing and to the same capacity. It's not like your physical body says to you that, if you get the intuitive knowledge that somebody might be trying to sabotage you, let's say, at work or somewhere else, that they're kind of dogging you out and talking about you. Well, that's not something your physical body, right? Your hand just didn't go upside your head and say, dink, hello, that person, you can't trust that person. They're out to get you. They're just super duper jealous. Now, you might see with your physical eyes that they're doing things that would denote jealousy, that your mind can then deduce that they're jealous of you. And you might see them or overhear them saying something to someone else, and then therefore you're just like, no, she didn't. No, he didn't do that. Right? Or you might be told something with your physical ears that you hear with your physical ears, and then you deduce it in your mind. But it's that knowing ahead of time that I just got a feeling, right? I just got a hunch that this here might be going on. That's intuition. That's a spiritual gift. That's not something that your physical being could do in and of itself. So that's how I define any and all spiritual gifts. If we're going to take, demystify it, that's the first thing we're going to do. We're going to demystify spiritual gifts. It is really nothing more than the operation or the manner in which your higher self operates. So just like breathing is a natural gift, nobody knows how someone takes their first breath. Nobody actually knows how your heart physically starts beating within your mother's womb. Right? It just starts. It's formed and then it starts beating one day. So that to me is a gift. It's a physical gift. We won't get it down and deep in how it starts. But that's a physical gift, right? The gift of being able to, I was a cross-country runner many, many years and 3 children ago. I was a cross-country runner. That was a long time ago. But I had the gift of being able to run long distances. I used to run 10 miles a day. Used to run 10 miles every day at least. That was a gift. A lot of people, I imagine that those of you that are listening to me now or watching me right now while we're recording this are probably thinking, honey, I couldn't run no darn 10 miles today, tomorrow, or the next day. Okay? So that was a gift. Some people have the gift of being able to be sprinters. That wasn't my gift. Some people have the physical gift of being able to play basketball. I guarantee you that's not mine either. Okay? Or softball. Please don't, if we're out there playing softball or something, or we go out and as adults think that we're going to play kickball one day, that hand-eye, foot-eye to ball coordination is not going to work. It just don't work for me. Okay? That's not my gift. Okay? Some people have a gift for numbers. They could be accountants or they could be scientists or engineers, right? Some people have artistic gifts that they can draw and they can paint or they can sing or they can compose. So these are all physical gifts. What are spiritual gifts though? Spiritual gifts are everything kind of outside that basically operates in its origins are, if you will, the 5th dimension and higher, right? They're beyond 4th dimensional and 3rd dimensional explanation. So therefore the intuitive gifts are beyond 3rd dimensional explanation. So that's a spiritual gift. Some people will call that clairvoyance, the knowing, right? We have a knowing. Right? There are spiritual gifts, clairaudience. Some people hear, literally physically hear spirits speaking to them, or they can hear from the spirit realm in their ears, like physically, like I'm talking to you right now, they can hear physically. Okay? Clairvoyance is kind of this being able to, so if I'm clairvoyant, I can, clairsentient is just the knowing. Clairvoyance is to me more kind of it's like a division of the intuition, right? Division of the intuition. So I suppose I should rewind a little bit for those that may or may not know. So we are talking about tonight what are spiritual gifts, and when I refer to dimensions, most of us learned in school that, right, that there's 3 dimensions. You're a 3rd dimensional being, right? The first dimension is like a dot, the second dimension is a line, and the 3rd dimension gives you width and depth, right? The 4th dimension is time, and then the 5th dimension is everything beyond that spiritually, just so we're all on the same level playing field. So, what else is there that I can think of? I actually wrote a bunch of these things down. Thank you so much, Anna, for that donation. I really appreciate that. Thank you. Let me go. I actually wrote these things down, believe it or not. I know, unreal, right? Unreal. And now I just gotta find my video. So, then we have clairaudience, clairsentience. Some people can telepathy, right? So telepathy is a spiritual gift where you can hear but what someone else is literally thinking. That is a spiritual gift. Okay? Hang on 1 second. Let me see if I can make this smaller. Okay, so telepathy is a spiritual gift. Energy manipulation, so energy work. Some of us have the ability, okay, to knowingly and at a higher level manipulate energy. So that comes into play in manifestation with the law of attraction, all of that kind of great stuff. That's where energy work does. Energy work also comes in for those of us that are empathic or intuitive healers, energy healers. Like I've developed that gift. It was given to me, but I developed that gift of being able to see with my 3rd eye and sense where there's injury to someone's chakra system, or where there's energy work that's needed. I can see spirits around them. And a lot of this, if you notice, is kind of like intermingled. So I'm going to go back to intuition, because intuition is technically called claircognizance. It's the ability to acquire psychic knowledge by intrinsic knowledge. In other words, I will sense that somebody perhaps is being an energy drain on somebody else. Or when I'm utilizing the tarot cards, or I just get kind of, whatever, it just comes over me. Psychically, I have the knowing. Okay, it kind of drops in my brain, if you will. I know that I know deep down in my heart. That's why when some of y'all, when I'm giving y'all a message or whatever, and you want to tell me that it ain't true, that, no, your man didn't cheat on you, or no, this didn't happen, or no, that didn't happen, or no, I don't feel a certain way, and I'm just sitting there looking at the camera, or I'm on the phone, and I'm like, okay. And then I would tell you 10 times out of 10, they come right back around to me later on, off air, and they say, yeah, you're right. So it's intuition, claircognizant. Clairvoyance is the ability to perceive persons, objects, locations, and physical events through extrasensory perception. So, if you've just known someone is in the room, that they have entered into the room, that's clairvoyance. Now, that also could be that you're connected to that person energetically, so I can clairvoyantly pick up when certain people are in the area. I can clairvoyantly pick up that someone might be talking about somebody else, or that someone's in trouble, and then I start calling if I don't get clarity on who that is. So that's clairvoyance. Okay? Clairaudience is the ability to acquire information by psychic type or spiritual auditory means. So, right, you're hearing, okay? So let's go back, because I don't want to miss anything. Are we tracking here? Everything is cool? So telepathy, I can like hear people's thoughts. Telekinesis, literally being able to move something. Now that's a little bit different because telepathy and telekinesis are a little different. They have their spiritual basis, but you can actually, it is physically happening in your mind. So your mind can get trained to the point, we only use 10% of our brain. So your mind can actually get trained to the point, right, where it is able to, through generating an electromagnetic field, because it does that. We'll talk about the physiology of our bodies another time. But the electromagnetic field it generates can actually either pick up on someone else's field or move things. I have seen that happen. So that's a little bit different, but it kind of has its basis, of course, in spirituality. So what are spiritual gifts? Is what we're discussing today. An empath, the ability to sense, feel others' emotions and energies. And probably if you're under the sound of my voice, you are most likely an empath. Because empaths, honey, are drawn to me because I'm an empath and I'm able to help folks figure out how to get through it. Because, honey, it can be a lot, right? Being empathic and not knowing, we'll talk about that in another segment of this series, having these spiritual gifts start to actually materialize or activate, and then not knowing how to handle them and not knowing how to kind of control them or allow them to operate, decently and in order in your life can be a lot. So a lot of times one of the first spiritual gifts that we see that comes up for us, that first gets activated when we go through a spiritual awakening, is the empathic abilities. Those are definitely abilities that we see coming at us at first, are the empathic abilities. Because all of a sudden your spirit is awakened, right, to being connected and interconnected with the entire collective, both here on earth and beyond. And so now we're like, oh my God, here's all these energies. And oh my gosh, that person's really sad. And wow, that person's super happy. And man, that person's had a horrible, couple of years. I can just feel it. Right? I can feel it. You'll go into a crowded room and it's like it's too much because you can feel everybody's energy everywhere. Right? So it can be a little overwhelming. All right, let's go about some other ones. Ooh, here's a good one. Precognition or premonition. The ability to perceive future events. Now, this perception can happen in dreams. This perception can happen just like, ooh, I really feel like something's about to go down. That's how it starts with that a lot of times it'll start with the dreading. Okay? It'll start with the dreading. These are all spiritual gifts, right? What are spiritual gifts? They are abilities that don't originate within our third dimensional being. They definitely originate outside of that, from our higher selves, fifth dimension and higher. That is almost the same, but kind of different from the gift of prophecy. The ability to predict what will happen in the future. So I operated as a prophetess in the church. That was one of the main gifts that I've operated in since, oh gosh, I can remember. You know, the ability to be able to kind of enter into a room or or whatever, or just get in front of somebody and not only have the claircognizance or the intuition or clairvoyance to be able to tell them about their past, but then to have the prophetic knowledge to be able to tell them about their future and predict what will happen and when. So, a huge one that seems to come to me for whatever reason is I have this innate ability to be able to see people's significant others. They're the one. See them and give them a heads up on when they would meet them. Usually I get a general idea about where. It has happened where I've seen it down to what they'll be wearing when you encounter your significant other. That's just one thing, right? I've been able to prophesy, gosh, some good things, some bad things, right? I don't want to go into all that right now. But the ability to predict the future, that also, so premonition, prophecy, and being a seer or having the second sight, the ability to see future and past events, to perceive information that isn't present to your senses. So, right, that's that clairvoyance. That's that. Usually, the seers tend to see these things in visions. They'll see them in dreams. Prophets typically just speak it out. You just know it and you speak it. And those that have a premonition, they tend to get some sort of little flash. They're just like, I really feel it. I feel that this is going to happen. But it's all three different divisions of the same thing. Right? It's three different divisions of the same thing. These are all spiritual gifts. Now I'm going to go through a couple more, and then I want to get to kind of also who can have these, right? And kind of discuss that. How can we, I don't know if I'm going to start talking about how we're going to gain access to them quite this time, but I want to talk about what they actually are. And we're going to get to how we can have them, okay? Aura reading, the ability to perceive energy fields around people, places, and things. So sometimes you can go to people and they're like, or there's a lot of people on YouTube too, that'll say, oh, I'm an aura reader. Now some people, like my very good friend Jeremy Anaker, physically see auras. Now that would be a little weird for me. I'm not gonna lie. Like, can you imagine walking around and you see people, but then you immediately see them in colors? You see all the colors all around them? Can you imagine that? That'd be kind of weird. I mean, and not that it's weird, but that'd be like off-putting. I can't even imagine that. Like being able to do that, right? And you're just kind of walking around. Now, I'm sure by now, Jeremy's about my age, and he's been able to see auras for a long time. So I'm sure by now he's got it kind of under control. We can kind of, manage it, or he's very used to it. But can you imagine? So that's aura reading. We talked about in energy manipulation. There's also energy healing. Not all of us are energy healers, like to a certain degree. Okay? The ability to heal with one's own empathic, etheric, or, taking stuff from the ethos, astral, mental, or spiritual energy. So whenever you guys work with me and I use Reiki as a method, we do Reiki sessions or something along those lines, I'm literally doing energy work. I'm doing energy healing. I'm perceiving the injury in your chakra system. I'm perceiving really, because I kind of see, it's different. But I perceive kind of the chinks in the aura armor, and then go in and channeling universal life energy, channeling God energy, channeling, right, that healing love and light. Go in and heal etherically those areas that need to be healed. Okay? There's also those that do astral or mental projection. That's the ability to voluntarily project your astral body or your consciousness, your higher self, and it's being associated with having an out-of-body experience in which the astral body becomes separate from the physical body. Now, some people can just do that stuff on demand. Like astral projection is, I've known people that literally can do their astral projection, and they will physically, well, not physically, you know what I mean, spiritually be in somebody else's house, like halfway around the world or halfway around the country. But they just do it. Or they project, to a different dimensional plane, or they, just anywhere. I mean, they're just like out of here. You know what I'm saying? Like gone. And they do it on a regular basis. They're so used to doing it that they do it kind of like on command. I've known some people that can do that, and they'll still be having a conversation with you, like a third dimensional conversation. I'll be like, how are you having this conversation? How are you having this conversation with me right now? And you're like, oh, hang on, I'm kind of over here doing this over there, right? But, that's because your spirit is eternal and multidimensional and all of this stuff. So, I suppose it can happen. So, but that's astral projection. Now, when you guys engage with me in meditation and I warn you, oh, we're going to go somewhere today, that's astral projection. Like, I know that together we're going to have an out-of-body experience. We are going to allow our consciousness to soar to higher dimensions. Okay? That's astral projection. That's a spiritual gift. So now, being able to do it voluntarily, like on command, is a spiritual gift. But you can develop it, and we'll talk about developing the spiritual gifts in another of the episodes in this series. And then I think the last one I want to talk about today is mediumship or channeling. Like, that's one you guys are super familiar with, I'm sure. There's plenty of people either on YouTube or on any of the podcast platforms that might be listening to me, or, you see them on TV, like, what was the Long Island medium? Was that what her name was? Or there's that celebrity, the young boy, that celebrity medium. So you see them, right? And there's been some others that have been out here on television, mainstream. And that is really channeling, or the ability to, the definition is the ability to communicate with spirit, of mediumship. Channeling is when you really allow that spirit to speak through you. So a lot of times mediums, like, people think that the two are the same, but they're not. There are some mediums that don't channel that person. There are some mediums that, and a lot of them, as a matter of fact, I'm just going to go on a limb here and say the majority of mediums that I have definitely encountered, definitely in YouTube, the YouTube world, and in the in real life world, don't actually channel. They can speak to spirit and spirits, but but they don't actually channel them, because that's a very different thing. I know I'm probably getting too far in the weeds, but I feel like it's important for us to make these delineations as we're laying the foundation of what are spiritual gifts. Okay, because mediumship and being able to speak to spirits and kind of have the conversation, hear what they have to say, and then repeat it back, okay, is very different than allowing that particular spirit to literally speak through you. And I will tell you how you will know the difference. For those of you that have watched some of my other YouTube videos from time to time, I can't think of any offhand. Maybe I'll think of it later. But there have been moments in time where I have given a message and my voice has changed. And usually it's a collective message. So for me, and I know some of the, the good Christian folks will be, they'll freak out when I say this, but I have channeled Jesus, I have channeled the Holy Spirit, I've channeled God. When any of y'all that grew up or been in the charismatic church and the prophet or the prophetess gets up in front of the church and gives a message, right? They have a word for you, for the church. They have a word for the church. 9 times out of 10, if you think about it, their voice changes. It's a different intonation, right? It's got a different cadence. It has a different feeling. It has a different power to it than just that person, me, giving you a personal word. I can give you a personal word and it will sound the same just like me. I mean, personal meaning me to you as just an individual. But when there is a prophetic channeling that's happening, or a channeling period, there's that type of a message being given, a lot of times, most of the time, I've seen it very few times, where the person's mannerisms didn't change, their voice didn't change, you know it's not them. And I will say that that is the particular one that most people outside of the church, or most people in denominational structures that don't believe in the gifts of the Spirit, that's one that freaks them out the most, because they're like, that's all about the devil. Because basically, to a lot of people, they would say, well, you're just allowing another spirit to possess you. And that whole concept of spiritual possession is a whole nother topic for a whole nother day, but I'm going to leave the channeling where it is. Channeling is different than simple mediumship. Okay? Simple mediumship. I do see people, so for those of you that are going to be listening to this as a podcast or watching the broadcast over later, I do see some people saying that they would never channel. Well, never say never, because you never know. But I can guarantee you, if you've ever spoken a word to a congregation, if you've been in church and you've spoken a word to a congregation, I guarantee you were channeling, because that's exactly what it is. Now, there are people that channel other spirits, and we're getting way off in the weeds. So there are people that channel other light beings. They're not possessed. They come back to their normal consciousness. I mean, I came back to mine. It was no big thing. But you can channel shadow spirits just as easily as, if that's your choice. You know, you can channel shadow spirits if you so choose. But it is very, very different from possession, and we will talk about that another time. So what I want to get into now, though, we're 35 minutes in, and I don't want to stay on here too terribly long. What I want to get into now is, are these gifts, who are these gifts available to, right? Because, again, if you just go by if you go by Christianity, they're going to say, well, they're only available to you if you, have been baptized in the Holy Spirit and if you are a Christian. That's the only way that you can operate in these gifts, and anybody else that's operating them is demonic. Okay. No. No, no, and no. Spiritual gifts are spiritual gifts, sometimes called spiritual operations of the Spirit. Spiritual gifts and operations are spiritual gifts and operations no matter what side of the aisle, suppose, if you will, that you're on, and no matter what religion you believe in. And why do I say that? Because truth is truth is truth. If it is a reality for someone who is a charismatic Christian, it is still going to be a reality for someone that practices another type of religion. Similar to this. So my high school's name was Menominee Falls East. Well, then it merged, and that was a whole traumatic experience my senior year, but that's not the point. My high school was Menominee Falls East High, here in Wisconsin. Okay? The Titans. I ran cross country for the Titans. Sophomore, junior, and senior year. Okay? Now, of course, there were other schools in our division, our conference, if you will, right? There's probably, I think, about 7 or 8 schools in our conference. There was Hartford and Heartland and Menominee Falls North and Sussex and Germantown. You get the picture. There was a few schools around that were all close by. Now, we each had our school buildings weren't the same, and the names of our schools weren't the same, and our mascots weren't the same, and our colors weren't the same. But we're all in high school. And I ran cross country against young women from each of those high schools on the varsity team. We each ran on the same course. We each ran the 2.4 miles. That was the amount of the length of the course, right? We each started at the same starting point, and we ended at the same finish line. It might have been at different times, of course, but we each did the same thing. We had to go up the same hills, cross the same this, do the same that. It was all the same. But our uniforms looked different. And we were running for different schools. But we were still doing all the same thing. Same difference. Spiritual gifts are spiritual gifts. That was going to be the same 2.4 miles for everybody. The playing field was even. They're going to be the same. There are just some realities in the spirit that are the same in the spiritual world across the board. Just like each and every one of us, as under the sound of my voice or watching me right now, is breathing. Because if you're not breathing, you're not alive as a human being. So I suppose you could be watching me as a spirit. But if you're a human being right now, all of you are breathing. And if you're not, please dial 911. All of you have a heart that's beating. And again, if it's skipping or there's a problem, please put this on pause, dial 911, and come back to me later. Okay? There are just some things that all operate the same. And spirituality, or the spirit realm, is broader, trust me, much more expansive than the sliver that wants to claim that they're the only ones that can operate in these gifts. Whether you choose to operate in these gifts for good or for not so good in opposition is a different conversation. But the spirit, the operations and gifts of the spirit operate no matter what. Just like the law of sowing and reaping. You shall reap what you sow. if you put a corn seed in the ground, so I put a seed of corn in the ground, cover it up, water it, say, okay, I really need a whole lot of sunlight. Do what I already do. Weed all around it. If I plant corn in the ground, I'm not going to get green beans. Just saying. Right? If I plant green beans in the ground, I'm not going to get a crop of potatoes. I'm going to get green beans. I'm going to get corn. That's a universal law, right? You shall reap what you sow. The same universal law applies for spiritual gifts. Once you become an awakened and enlightened individual, once you create or deepen or knowingly, voluntarily connect to your higher source, to source energy, to the universal energy that exists and permeates us all. Once you plug into the consciousness, the collective consciousness, your individual spirit says, it's greater than me, it's greater than this third dimensional existence. I know there's something else, and I'm going to connect and I'm going to awaken to the greater world that's out there. Once that happens, you now have access to the same darn thing that I had access to when I was 12, and others have access to now that they're 30, and so on and so on and so on. What I do with those gifts is then my choice. And then I have to reap what I sow, depending upon how I use them. So they are all available to you. There are some gifts, however, that are going to operate in a greater way than in others. There are some of us that are meant to kind of teach and guide and assist in the spiritual gifts and the operations thereof and help others learn how to do it. So perhaps ours operate at a little bit of a higher level, but that doesn't make me any better than you. And that doesn't make me any more powerful necessarily as just an entity than you. I've just learned to use my gifts. And what you will find if you allow yourself to be open to these gifts, like I said, for most of us, the first one is being empathic, being able to feel everyone. The second one usually, or right alongside of that, is intuition. You just kind of know something will happen, right? You just know that person is not telling you the darn truth. You just know that in your knower, right? And then you're able to perceive clairvoyance. And then, like, what happens is, it's line upon line, precept upon precept. They grow. I could not consciously, knowingly speak to spirits, even though I was channeling, but because I wasn't told or taught that that was channeling, and even though I typically talk to angels, because anything outside of a Christian point of view was demonic and I was going to hell in a handbasket, I just didn't investigate it any further. But once I opened myself up to that possibility, and as I began to grow on the spiritual walk rather than solely the Christian kind of straighten out line, once I opened up and became more awakened, right, and in tune, all of a sudden then, mediumship now operates on a regular basis. These things, it's once you exercise, once your spirit body becomes stronger, more knowing, more what have you, once this begins to happen, I am telling you, the spiritual world opens up for you. So all of you under the sound of my voice, all of you listening to me, I don't care when this is, all of you listening to me have the ability to operate in or to receive these gifts. They are freely given. And it comes down to the maturity of your spirit, and as you go further in your ascension and awakening process, then these gifts start to operate. Now, some of you may never see auras, and that's okay. Maybe you don't want to, right? That's fine with me too, right? Maybe some of you don't want to be energy healers. That's okay too. But what I'm saying, and that's just a small short list I just gave you guys. But there's so much available to you. Why wouldn't you accept a gift? Right? Why wouldn't you accept the gift? However, you do have the choice to accept it or not. But I want you to know that no matter what you've been taught before, these gifts are available to you. And not only are they available to you, the reason why this is coming up so much is because we need them now more than ever. We need them. We need to understand them. We need to operate in them. We need to speak the spirit language. We need to be comfortable with living the dual dimensional life. It is imperative as we're going forward, if we're going to do our work as a light worker, being bearers of light and helping to heal the planet, helping to heal Earth and humanity and every living creature, helping to raise the vibrational set point, helping to usher in a new age into this planet. It's imperative that we're operating at a higher level and a higher capacity so that we are capable of doing it with ease and not always pulling and pushing so much. So what are spiritual gifts? They're your inheritance. Spiritual gifts are everything outside of the third dimensional realm, past time, that's been waiting to be bestowed upon you. It's the ability to operate outside of the confines of the game or the matrix that we operate in. Kind of like the superpowers. Like if you ever play video games or whatever, you know. You go and you grab health, and you go and you grab this, and you recharge here, and you're doing this here. That's what this is. Nothing to be afraid of. And it's completely available to you. Alright guys, that's going to conclude the teaching part of this broadcast. So if you want to click off, time to click off. Thank you guys for being here. I so appreciate you. Again, please don't leave without hitting that like button, subscribing, and please consider sharing. Look out, I'm going to put my schedule up, okay? Alright guys, I love you so much. Peace, love, blessings, and joy be unto you today, tomorrow, and for all eternity. I love you. Namaste. And don't forget to live life in spirit. Have a good night. Bye-bye.